If it's bull or bear, I don't care. It's quite a rough ride, just like life. But I'm kinda patient, 'cause only time will tell.
Is it playing
It's
the
gonna go up,
intro?
so you better stay
okay, just let me know when it's ready to go.
calm. Crow your coins, you gotta crow your coins. Crow your coins, crow your coins. Crow your coins, you gotta crow your coins. Crow your coins, crow your coins. Crow your coins, you gotta crow your coins. Crow your coins, crow your coins. Crow your coins, you gotta crow your coins.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Crypto Crow, here live with Charles Hoskinson of Cardano. It's about 1:12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Charles, it's been real, man. What's up?
It's good to be back, man. It's good to be back. I think it's been about a year or something like that.
Has it been that long since we went live together?
I don't know. I mean, it's just crazy.
You're all over the place.
Everything blurred together. You know, I've been to 52 countries in the last few years, and so I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast.
I hear you. I don't travel much, but I don't remember what I ate for breakfast either.
Right. I have to wonder if that's the dementia or the exhaustion.
Exhaustion, I think, is a part of it. Yes, exhaustion.
Yeah.
But you know, I watch all of your AMAs. I think it's so funny. Your intro is, "We are live." You're all excited, and then it goes,
Right.
"So now we're talking about Cardano." It's like you just totally changed. I always get a kick out of the intro.
Right. You got to go 1950s radio announcer with it. You know, that's always fun. You know, I'm a big fan of soccer, and it's always fun to watch like Latin American games where they have the soccer announcer. They just like get so into it. And you say, okay, let's do that. Let's get everybody fired up and excited for the AMA.
No, it's all good. But it's like you go over so much stuff, and it's funny because I've realized you actually discuss things in your AMA that the public doesn't know, that hasn't become a press release yet. That had, like, you could dissect most of your AMAs, and every 5 minutes could be a new press release if you wanted it to be. So,
right,
you know, yeah, that's always surprised me.
And we have like 230 people at IOHK, and some of the things I mentioned in the AMAs haven't even been propagated completely throughout the company. So it's like as much of a newsletter to my own company as it is for the community. And our comms team has gotten to the point where they actually write a summary of my AMA, and they create notes and they distribute them internally to everybody. What did Charles talk about? What are the bullet points? Let's separate the FUD from the content and so forth. But it's a lot of fun. And it's a good opportunity to face the community. I never censor the chat logs. I don't even moderate it. People just say and do what they want. And we usually get about 10,000 views for every AMA, which is pretty good engagement given that they're not planned and they're just kind of spontaneous events.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to pull 10,000 views in a relatively short period of time now anyway, right, unless you're like trash talking or you're somehow entertaining. The space right now is so difficult because people are just sitting idle, you know, with this bear market, and so it's a challenge, man. It's a challenge.
Right. This is the biggest challenge, I think, for us, because we've always been a deeply scientific and, a very deep engineering project. And those things take so long. I mean, just look at SpaceX. They say, oh, yeah, we're going to go to Mars. It'll take us 15 years, lots of science. We have to self-land rockets and all this stuff. So you kind of have to fill that dead space with something. And people are used to, with space travel, things taking a long time. But in the crypto space, things move so quickly. So you kind of have to move quickly, but at the same time adhere to principles and standards. I mean, we're moving as fast as we can. We've done over 50 releases with Jormungandr, and there's still just a gargantuan amount of work to do between now and the launch of Shelley. And you can see that progress, but if people don't get instant gratification right now, then it's a scam, or the project's not moving, or you guys we're all bad or something.
Right.
So I try to fill some of that dead space with the AMAs, and I try to get philosophical at some point.
Well, but the people who want to be down, they don't want to put in the time to watch the AMAs. You know what I'm saying? The people who believe and understand do.
The average watcher watches for over 30 minutes, which is pretty amazing. In the attention economy, most people stop watching in a few minutes. But to say, hey, we're getting thousands of people spending more than 30 minutes of their collective lives, watching something is really good engagement. And I try to keep it entertaining for that reason, and try to keep a mixture of technical and non-technical content.
I actually like when you're talking about the masks and things. I've always been into that stuff, so I'm always interested to see what you pull from your travels and wherever you go, and like what little artifacts and things. I used to fantasize about being like some sort of Indiana Jones, some guy a guy who's afraid to fly, wants to travel the world and hunt for artifacts and things. But no, I'm always interested in your AMAs, and I, overall, everybody knows that I've been extremely bullish on Cardano, and I still am. And I'm very well aware that sometimes projects just take longer. It's an impossibility to say by this date, this will all be done 100% ready to go. It's like impossible to do. That's why a lot of the big, like even in gaming, a lot of the big gaming companies like Blizzard, they don't give you a release date. They say when it's done, because they are smart enough to know that if people expect something, it doesn't matter what happens. Doesn't matter if there was a tornado in your office. If you don't make that deadline, you're a terrible individual. And so it's just, it's that. But the way that you fill the gaps, like you said, with the AMAs is helpful, because I believe that there is so much good information in those AMAs that people just pay attention. And like you said, even if you were to take notes, I think that they're very, very helpful. So
and the community annotates them. They actually timestamp them, and I think Aidatainment does that. The other thing is we have several Telegram channels with thousands and thousands of people, and they're moderated. And the incentivized testnet's coming out this week, and we've done tons of releases, and we have over 136 stake pools registered, ready for the incentivized testnet. We were saying, man, can we get 20 or 30 to participate? 136 just for a testnet of unique pools. So that's really cool stuff. And the level of engagement, participation we have is remarkable. We have members of the community stress testing our software before we stress test it. Yeah. So we have this internal benchmark suite we call Spinal Tap. You remember the old mockumentary from the 1980s where they said this one goes up to 11?
You're right.
Yeah. So we're going to test the network and take it up to 11. Well, somebody's doing that with our releases. They're just like tweeting, hey, look, we spammed 1 million transactions. Look what we did. And we're getting a lot of great data out of both the Rust and the Haskell client. But the problem is that, there's this standard of, well, it has to be completely done, and then and nothing counts except for that, especially coming from the Tezos community. It's unbelievable the last 2 months. Every thread, every one of my AMAs, there's somebody from the Tezos community saying, you guys suck, you're terrible, you're a casino coin, bad ICO, everything about you is incompetent, you have no product, just a wallet. Like, it almost feels coordinated, because I've just never seen any community have so much vitriol over this. I mean, if they want to talk shit, their community spent more than $50 million cleaning up their legal house because of the poor ICO that they did. We didn't do that. I mean, the entire project financing was about $62 million. They spent that much cleaning their house up. I wrote some blog posts 2 years ago complaining about how they did things. Grow up. This space has just never ceased to amaze me. It's filled with such profoundly bright people who also have just no social skills, and they have no empathy, and they just want everything right now. Meanwhile, if we're actually going to be useful to 1 billion people, if we're actually going to scale, if we're actually going to solve global problems, we desperately need to actually build a big tent and be kind and communicate and so forth. So it's just a strange experience, and I try to use the AMAs as a way to kind of bridge that gap with everybody, and have a way for people to participate and have an outlet and ask questions. But it's blown me away, the level of unprofessionalism in the space.
I think a part of that has to do, it depends on who's doing the talking, right? I think a part of that has to do with just the bear market, just beating everybody down. Everybody, including myself, is feeling it. And, when you have all of these think about it. We went from this euphoric high of the peak of this bull run, and then and all of these great projects, all of this potential, right, just exploding all over everybody's face. And then you know, and then everybody's thinking, hey, okay, I'm going to get in. I don't want to miss out. And there's so many newcomers all at the same time, everybody buying in at the highs, and then boom, pop, the bubble goes. And now it's just, everybody's been riding this wave down for, over almost 2 years. And so it's, people are hot, right? And people are looking for a savior. It's like people are looking for that hand reaching out of the mud, it's just like, it's really difficult. And so they're losing sight of where we're actually at in the space right now. They're losing sight of the potential is still there. If not, the potential for gains, as a lot of them say, is more there now than ever. It's just a matter of being able to figure out which projects are actually doing things. I don't know many projects whose CEO are doing regular AMAs online, explaining what's happening in their project. A lot of these people are hiding out, waiting for the market to recover and carry them. And so, I commend you on what you do. And it's one of the reasons why I've remained so incredibly bullish on Cardano, because it's not just about the technology. It's also about the fact that its CEO is constantly in the public eye, letting the world know we are here, we are working, we're doing what we're doing. And I don't think a lot of people, it's like the people that want to hate on your project or any other project for that matter, love to just create negativity, whether it's merited or not, and run with it.
Right.
And so, and then the people who can't think for themselves, who have to follow the thoughts of somebody else and potentially choose the wrong people to pay attention to, they end up lost and angry too for reasons they don't even understand. It's just stuff that they've been,
Right.
fed.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, first, in terms of returns, the fundamental reality that people don't seem to understand is if you have an asset that goes up by a 10x or 100x or 200x, to realize that value, you have to have a counterparty who buys that asset from you. And if that counterparty, the only reason they're buying that asset is they believe it's going to go up 10x, that's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. Okay, so you're never going to do well there. Statistically, you're always going to lose. If they're buying it because they're using it to do something, there's real utility with that token, it has real value. Well, then that's actually a different story. And we as an ecosystem have not collectively gotten to a point where the protocols we've constructed are useful at a global scale. So we will not justify capitalizations this high. I said this way back in 2017. I was on Bloomberg and I said that the ICO mania is a ticking time bomb. And that was at $600 Bitcoin before it bloomed up to 20K. We've been pretty consistent throughout this entire euphoria, and now we're in the trough of disenchantment. If you're looking at the Gardner hype cycle, but eventually we'll get to slopes of enlightenment. You're absolutely right. Long term, this space is here to stay, and things will get better. In terms of visibility, I'm just one guy in a large ecosystem. Cardano's got so many great people. We have the ambassadors at the foundation. We have Emergo, Sebastian, Nico do a great job. The foundation's finally starting to wake up. And, everybody's trying to do their part. And, I wake up every day. My job, make sure that we have the delivery side taken care of. Can we get the technology to market? But there's also an operational side. There's a commercial side. There's a capitalization side to get financing the projects that need to build in our ecosystem. So it's a team effort. And there's thousands of people collectively in that team. And we disagree sometimes on strategy, but that's the point of decentralization. No one person's so powerful that they can control the whole ecosystem or run the whole ecosystem. Everybody's just picking up a shovel and digging.
Right.
And if we all have that mentality over a long arc of time, we're going to get there. We're going to actually deliver the goals of the project and so forth. But I understand how frustrating it is to people because, if you put $10 in, now it's $1, you feel pretty stupid.
Right.
But remember, there was a time period when people put $10 into Amazon and it was $1 after the collapse in the 90s. And it took 11 years for it to recover its all-time high. So, good things take time. And if your horizon is, I want to be part of an ecosystem that's going to be here in 10 years or 20 years, that's a very different criteria than I want to make immediate returns and money. Like a great example would be the Stellar burn. The minute that they did it, I brutally criticized them. I said, what the hell are you guys doing? You're going to go destroy a bunch of tokens because you can't figure out what to do with them. And yeah, you'll get a 10 or 20% boost temporarily in your market cap and you make your speculators happy. Here's what your speculator is going to do. They're going to sell and realize those profits driving your price down. And anything you've done with your burn will be basically canceled out. And now you've permanently lost project financing for when your project gets big. And then you get all these people in the Cardano ecosystem saying, burn tokens. First, like, whose tokens would we burn? Then second, even if there were tokens laying around to burn, like, what would that actually do for you? You'd be throwing away the back 5 years or 10 years of project financing when we get really big and we're trying to finance hundreds of dApps and other things to come to the platform. So the mentality is a get rich quick mentality. It's not a sustainable mentality. And a lot of these people won't be here in 2 years or 3 years. They always wash out, just like the day traders washed out in the 90s with the internet boom. But when you get to the slopes of enlightenment, when you get to that other side of the Gardner hype cycle, you're in a position where you have real entities, the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebooks, that actually have real sustainable business models. And those are the ones that are going to actually propagate this technology and take it to the masses and get billions of users.
I'm just curious, what projects, being at your level, what are there maybe 5 projects that you think are going to really stand through and rise up amongst the rest moving forward?
Well, if you have a lot of money in your bank account, you can just keep the ball rolling for a very long time. Like, for example, Tezos and EOS and these other guys, they do have like 8 figures, 9 figures of, in the case of EOS, I think 10 figures. They have a shit ton of money just, sitting in their bank account. So whether the idea is sustainable or not, you can, kind of keep these things rolling for years to decades and play around for a bit. So that's certainly the right to try. It's almost like Microsoft competing with Google for their search engine. It's like they spent $15 billion trying to keep Bing going. And, so money alone doesn't actually get you adoption and get you momentum and traction. You also have to have the right product market fit, and you have to have the right philosophy. I admire any project that has an ability to self-fund. So a treasury model, I think, is a huge competitive differentiator. You look at Zcash or look at Dash or Tezos or these other projects, they can print their own money. And as long as people are trading the token, they think it's real, the ecosystem's real, that's millions of dollars available to the developers and to the ecosystem to just keep going and pivoting and doing things, and keeps you sustainable and relevant here. So I think that's the first criteria. The second criteria is that you have to have a right product market fit for a particular industry. So I really admire projects that are very disciplined and scoped. Great example would be Chainlink. I mean, whether you love them or hate them, the guys are disciplined as hell, and they're very clear about what they want to accomplish, what their target market is, who they're working with, and they've executed admirably, and they're doing a very good job. If you cast too broad of a net, you're going to miss the mark. So you have to be very vigilant, hyper-focused, and you have to really address your market and focus a lot on the user experience. Third, you have to have great fundamentals. So the tech has to be right. The science has to be right. When we entered the space as Cardano, there was an enormous scientific deficit that nobody was paying back. Everybody was just making these claims. We got proof of stake, we got scalability, we were secure, blah, blah, blah. And basically some guy who maybe has a degree in computer science and 5-10 years of programming experience, just slinging code. No scientists, no papers, no peer review, none of this stuff. Now in 2019, the competitive landscape is totally different. We're starting to see a lot of like real projects. So you got the Starkwares, founded by the guys who basically invented the snark. You got Sylvia Macaulay, who's like fucking Nobel laureate in computer science at MIT. You got all these amazing projects, whether they be Algorand or Avalanche or Starkware, that are here to play, and they have very clear ideas about what they want to do, and they have real science behind them. So the third thing is you have to have those foundations and those fundamentals. And we were certainly the first mover who really took it seriously, but by no means are we the only project now that are doing that. So yeah, I'd say those are 3 things: the ability to self-fund, second, really, really well understood scope that's laser focused, and third, solid fundamentals and a solid team. And so if I had to pick projects that are going to be around, any project that satisfies those criteria, I think is going to be here in 5 years or 10 years.
Gotcha. Okay. So where do you see, so obviously you're doing this test net, this incentivized test net. How long do you expect that to run for? And what exactly are you looking to get out of it before, the official launches?
Right. So there's the problem with Cardano, and this is the problem with any POS system that requires community control, is that you have to build up some infrastructure before you actually completely decentralize. So Satoshi was very lucky in that no one cared about Bitcoin. So, when he was mining, it was just him. And then every now and then somebody would mine and the hash rate would triple and then it would go down. right? So one guy could run the whole network, but no one cared about it. It's just think how easy it would be to do a 51% attack on Bitcoin back in 2009. Literally, just some kids in their dad's basement could have done that with a few GPUs, and the Bitcoin would have died, or it would have been very difficult to compete. So the lack of notoriety was a benefit launching that cryptocurrency. But now today, people care. There are hackers. There's a huge incentive for people to do nasty things. So you kind of have to launch with training wheels, and you kind of have to launch through a very systematic process and build up a kernel of decentralization before you completely let go. So what the incentivized testnet is about is basically building up that large group of actors who are now going to basically run the network. And so it goes from IOHK and Merco and the CF to that. And we were surprised at just how quickly people have stepped up and how excited people are to do that. We expected like 10 stake pools, to start and then kind of work our way through, maybe 20, maybe 30. We have 136 registered, and that's just the beginning. So stage one is just getting all that infrastructure in place, the stake pool dashboard, the command line tools, the get the right user experience, get people used to the business of delegation and staking and these types of things, and also give the exchanges time to have that discussion of staking as a service. So when you put your ADA on an exchange, you can have it staked on the exchange and get a return from that. So that takes a few months, and so it'll carry into Q1 of 2020. Second, we're going through a pretty aggressive security audit right now with both the Haskell and the Rust code through a firm in East Coast called Route 9B. A lot of former NSA guys and other things like that. And they're making sure that
nice.
we've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. For
there are going to be conspiracy theories about that relationship now.
Well,
NSA is working with Cardano to spy on your crypto transactions.
I know. Well, look, we got a lot of cryptographers working for us, and if you're a cryptographer in America, at some point you work for DARPA, the NSA, or somebody, or you took money from somebody. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to chase down those transitive relationships, they're going to have a lot of three-letter agencies somewhere down the rainbow. But I mean, frankly, those are the people you want looking at your stuff because it's their day job to break it. And they break it at the state level, which means they have access to a lot of knowledge that most people don't. So that audit's public. So when we finish it, we'll publish the audit report and the remediation for it. But so far, it looks pretty good. So once we clear the audit and also we build up that critical mass, then we'll feel real comfortable about launching the network. In terms of milestones, the new Haskell code's been deployed on our end. Then we deploy it for our exchange partners and other people. And when we link it to the wallet backend, then we'll deploy it to everybody. Then we'll do a Haskell Shelley testnet. We'll A/B test it against the Rust one. And then they're going to kind of merge a little bit. And then we'll do the launch. So it won't be more than, it won't be 6 months. It'll be probably more like 3 to 5 months, somewhere in that range. It just depends on where we want to cut it. But the point of the incentivized testnet is now people are making money. So if you actually want to participate, you can actually, it's like Shelley is out, but it's Shelley out without exposing everybody in the Cardano ecosystem to risk. Like if we made a mistake or there's a security flaw, that doesn't cascade back to the mainnet. The mainnet is running the old ByBit code. So it's like training wheels, basically. And then, over time, as you learn to ride the bicycle, you take the wheels off. And then we wake up and we have this beautiful, very decentralized network that's considerably more decentralized than EOS or these other guys. And it's got kind of its own lore, its own ecosystem, its own tooling. The exchange infrastructure looks good. And then we can get to the business of smart contracts. And that's running in parallel. So it'll be very easy for us to merge those two things together.
So within 3 to 5 months, you're looking at being able to stake on the mainnet.
Yeah, that's the plan. I mean, there's not a lot of barriers preventing us from getting there. It's a question of security, quality, and decentralization. Right. So there's only so much we can do on our side if we have low participation.
You could do it tomorrow if you wanted to throw caution to the wind. You're just trying to make sure that nobody's going to mess with the network. I get it.
And frankly, what is launching this week could be Shelley. Mm-hmm. That's why I keep saying it's like people say, well, are you going to eat your shoe or not? I'll probably eat a shoe cake. We just have to have one made.
Yeah, you're going to eat a shoe cake, Charles. Because I was on that, but I'm like, now wait a minute, Charles. You got to eat something with at least the picture of a shoe on it.
Right, but my whole argument is like you can stake, you can delegate, you can run a stake pool. You're making real money. So it's like this feels a lot like Shelley. Okay, we're not quite doing it on the mainnet yet, but that's like what Shelley's scope was. And frankly, if we wanted to, we could make that Shelley and just like say this is the mainnet now. Good luck, everybody. But that's never how we've run this project. We've always been like it's the systematic, formal methods approach, et cetera, et cetera. So we kind of try before you buy. And so we told the community this is what we were doing. It said the self node, the network testnet, and the incentivized testnet, run it for a bit, achieve decentralization with it, and then flip a switch, and then that becomes the mainnet, and everybody's there. And it's been pretty clear, our development velocity. I think we had 1,800 commits this week, and last week we had just about the same, and more than 50 releases for Gander in the last month and a half. So it's unbelievable how much code we're writing and how quickly we're moving. It's just, there's a lot to do. There's a lot to test, and this is super complicated software. Also, these are new protocols. Everything we're doing, we built from the ground up. It's bespoke. It's never existed before. We're the first people in the world to turn Ouroboros on and actually deploy it to a production network. So to go from science and peer review to formal methods to code, from that perspective, we're moving faster than any other projects ever moved. But the problem is, the definition of success here is high market cap, it's there, and I get free money. That's the mentality a lot of people have. We can never win that game. We can never satisfy that game. So we don't pay much attention to that noise.
So basically, hopefully 3 to 5 months for the staking on the mainnet, and with that, you're like just having it sit on the dataless wallet will generate more. Correct?
Yeah, you'll have a stake center, and actually that center is what's launching this week. So if you want to know what the experience is, when you download the testnet Daedalus, you'll actually be able to see it. So you'll see the stake pool registry. You'll have the GUI there. People can get used to staking, and then you have to pick which pool, and if that pool wins, then you collectively share in the fruits of those labors. And then also it gives us some time to start dragging some other things into the ecosystem. Like, we really want to get multi-sig in place before Shelley launches. And then also we'd like to get hardware support for cold staking in place. So right now we're negotiating a contract out with a ledger developer to make sure that we have support for that. And we just needed a little bit of runtime to get all that infrastructure.
And then shortly after that, you're talking smart contracts.
Yeah, and those are easy because basically it's just an extension of the Shelley ledger rules. So the way that we designed the architecture, it's pretty simple to run it in. And actually what we're going to do is launch a Plutus testnet in parallel. So sometime early next year, we'll have the mock chain and basically a central server where you can write smart contracts against it. So you can test your dApps in that controlled setting. And then when we turn on Goguen, you can just port the code one-to-one. So it's kind of like having a safe environment to do these things. But Plutus and Marlowe are getting really close to done. And we're starting to actually talk to people about moving their apps over to Cardano or to build apps for Cardano. And our hope is to have a good set of launch partners for Goguen. And that's going to happen closely to the Shelley time horizon, because those were parallel work streams, and they always were. And that's a lot of work we put in. There's 3.5 years of research and development went into development of Plutus. It's a great language.
Do you have any of those dApp partners locked in yet?
Yeah, we have several. Like, for example, Beef Chain has expressed interest, and it's just a matter of
Beef Chain.
Beef Chain.
What the hell is Beef Chain, Charles?
It's a supply. I got no beef with them. It's a supply chain for meat, and actually they have USDA relationships. They're going to actually track all the sheep in Canada on their blockchain. There's some really cool stuff that they're doing. So this is an example of things we're looking at. So there's a mixture between fintech, supply chain, healthcare, these types of things. And, we'll make those announcements here and there. But, Beef Chain is one of our neighbors out in Wyoming. And actually the guy who founded it was one of the people responsible for most of the laws that were passed in Wyoming that were very pro-crypto.
Really?
So they're just, yeah.
So I need to thank him for all my LLCs.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just a great partner, and there's just a lot of people like that who've come to us saying, we'd really love to do something with you. So we're not going to be wanting for partners. It's more of a curation effort of selecting 5 or 10 really good ones, because we'd also like to make this pedagogical, meaning that we'd like to launch with tutorials and example code and things like that, and show people how to issue a token on Cardano,
like GeoCities,
how to write it. Yeah, basically.
So I learned HTML back in the day.
Back in the day, right? You show people how to deploy on your platform, and there's still a big internal debate about how we're going to do Ethereum interoperability. We could go the full banana where we actually deploy an EVM on our ledger as well, because we can do that with a chimeric ledger design, to writing a Solidity to Plutus compiler or something like that. So we'll also announce that strategy at a later.
So there's a
date
potential that Ethereum dApps would run on Cardano.
Yeah, actually, it's not hard to do. People tend to forget that IOHK is one of the few companies in the world that actually wrote a full Ethereum node. There was a time with Mantis that you could actually run both Ethereum Classic and the Ethereum network with Mantis. We hand implemented the EVM, so we understand Ethereum incredibly well at IOHK. We also worked with RV, and they did the first set of formal semantics for the EVM. So getting Ethereum interoperability is extremely easy. and it's something that we could definitely do. And then it would be easy for us to port any Ethereum dApp over to Cardano. It's just been a question of maintenance and upgradability.
Ethereum dApp developers that want to basically run on Ethereum and then port their dApps over to Cardano could do so really easily, I guess.
Right. That would be the idea. And what's really cool is we'd actually have 2 accounting models running on our ledger. So you have like an extended UTXO, so that's more Bitcoin level, and that's where Plutus lives. But then you'd also have Ethereum style accounts, and they actually could call each other. So a Plutus contract could talk to an EVM contract and back. And that's a development pattern that's it's never been done before. We were the ones who invented that. It's called our chimeric ledger design. So we'll make an announcement about what we're planning on doing and how ambitious we want to be. There's one concern I have about backward compatibility. For example, we were trying to figure out what the Ethereum Foundation's plans were for EWASM, because for like several years they've been trying to move from EVM to WebAssembly, and that's stalled. And we're not excited. Like the lead guy there went to Algorand, and then the primary proponent for WASM is now in jail for going to North Korea. So there's like a lot of stuff like, okay, well, what are you guys doing or not? So we're a little concerned about deploying infrastructure on Cardano that we have to permanently live with that would be deprecated because of some changing plan for F2. So we're still trying to see where they're going, and also where the rest of the ecosystem is going, because I think Tron has also deployed the EVM and a few others have as well. And so, the hope would be ubiquitous interoperability. So you can take developers not just from Ethereum, but other platforms. But we'll make an announcement about that.
See, the thing, when I hear this and I think, okay, I think back on Cardano, I think from a speculative nature too. I'm thinking if I were a dApp developer, and I'm looking at Cardano's price today compared to where its all-time high was, and then compare that to where I see it going in the future, I would absolutely be jumping all over being able to have a dApp running on the Cardano blockchain, because the more I'm able to generate and my dApp is able to provide for me, it's just, the gain potential of that is going to be a big driver, I think. So, but, if you've already done the work on Ethereum and you can port it over, well, why not?
Right. And, there's a lot of things there. And also you have to remember a lot of the Ethereum infrastructure only works because of external servers, infrastructure that people deploy that doesn't run in the Ethereum blockchain that's bridged into it. So everybody starts with, I want to run Uber on a blockchain. They try to do it. It's 1,000 times too slow and 1,000 times too expensive. So they say, I'm going to take most of this stuff and run it off chain, and then I'll do a little bit on chain, and then we'll just coordinate through like Web3 or something.
And we'll figure it out. Based, right?
Yeah, exactly. Blockchain based. Like it's almost like Kona coffee. It's like it's not real Kona coffee. It's only one Kona bean in the bag, and everything else comes from Indonesia. So we have to have a compelling story for that. And with Plutus, we built Plutus from the ground up to handle that use case. Ethereum was kind of monkey patched on. So it's a complicated thing, but we're just getting Shelley out, and internally we have 30 people who wake up every day, do nothing but the smart contract side. And as soon as Shelley's been fully de-risked and we have a launch date, then we'll start talking a lot about Goguen. But there's already Goguen conversations happening internally and with partners. And there's a lot we can do there. It's pretty exciting. And I think our approach is just really good, because we brought in people whose day job was to create programming languages, like Phil Wadler and Manuel Chakravarty and these other guys. They created Haskell. They've been around for like decades. They understand this stuff very well, and they understand how to build a successful programming language that people care about. And they know a lot about developer tools and developer experience. They've trained generations of programmers. So it's not rocket science, but it certainly is an art. And the people who are really good at this, we got the ringers. So I'm not so worried about Goguen. I think we'll bring something very competitive to market in 2020. And by the way, scalability is going great too. I have the paper for Ouroboros Hydra. My scientists are keeping it state secret. They won't even let me tweet the title, because they don't want to reveal anything. But we actually have a dedicated team specifically to prototype Hydra, and hopefully get a prototype internally by January for performance data. But Hydra is looking great. So it's going to be the 1, 2, 3 punch. We'll have Shelley hit, we'll have Goguen hit, and then we'll start talking about Hydra, and that'll hit in 2020, and that's going to make us far more performant than anything I've seen from F2. And it's a great approach, and we may be able to get interoperability with Bitcoin and a lot of other things out of that. So I'm very excited about this roadmap.
I'm extremely excited as well. And like I said, I'm always watching the AMAs. I'm always keeping tabs on what's going on. I mean, like personally, next to Bitcoin, it's my biggest holding. And so I'm not only that, but I have some projects in the works that we've been working on for a while. One is replacing another because of some issues. And like, if there's any way of getting it on the Cardano blockchain somehow, like there's, for me, I just, as an investor, as a speculator, but as somebody who's trying to, continue building different, tools and assets for people to use, I feel like I would be naked unless I have something on Cardano at some point. So someday.
Well, one of the advantages we have is we have Emergo, and Emergo is the venture fund for the Cardano ecosystem. They have money, and their whole job is to fund great projects that they think can provide good value for Cardano and return for them. And one of the things that we're going to work with the foundation in doing is making sure that Emergo is very transparent about its investment practices and policy and what it takes to become part of their portfolio. They've done some pilots, like they did the D-Lab pilot over in New York, and they have a whole cohort that's graduating from that. And they've invested in India and other places. But then this is kind of just getting their feet wet, learning how to be good investors and so forth. But when we turn everything on, it's like the gloves are on. It's time to go and get this done. So if you have some good projects, go talk to the Emergo guys. Manmeet Singh is their chief investment officer, and hopefully they should have a completely transparent investment pipeline. And the best people will be able to get some good funding.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be happy to reach out. I don't have any they're not groundbreaking, but small projects that I think over time will continue to grow and help. And what I think of as small, maybe large, I don't know. It's a relative term, I guess, but. Yeah, I mean, I'll touch base and see if
and also the other thing is we'll have the treasury turned online before the end of 2020, and that's what I was talking about. That first criteria for sustainable projects is, do you have the ability to self-fund? So that treasury, I'm going to submit ballots to. You can submit ballots to, and anybody else can, and that way the community can self-fund, and this provides reassurance to people that if they actually build things here and they do a good job and they're producing a lot of value for the community, there's going to be guaranteed funding that's censorship resistant, decentralized, and it's not connected to ego, and it's not connected to a particular legal entity to help them get to the next level and move forward. There's just so much pettiness in this space where people who should work together just won't work together because of ego.
Agreed.
And if they work together, both projects would have a win-win. And so that's the point of treasury systems, is that it disintermediates people from that decision making, and you start going to the wisdom of the crowds. And you're not trying to make the case to Charles Hoskinson at that point or Dan Larimer or something. You're making the case to the Cardano community or the EOS community. You're saying, hey, I will provide value to your community if you let me go and build this. And then they're looking at you at the merits of your plan as opposed to whether you're liked or not.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of ego.
And this is what everybody was waiting for. They're like, we all know what this interview was about.
Man, I had a hell of a morning.
I didn't read the tweet storm. So what happened?
Okay. So you and I had spoke. Was that last night we had spoke?
Yeah.
And I kind of, you being new to, the MMA world and how things work, I kind of explained to you like, well, look, this is kind of the order of things, right? To make this real, anywhere you go, there's going to have to be a commission. Those commissions require certain elements. You have to have a fight contract. You typically have an NDA. Right. You have all sorts of different elements that go into cultivating an event. And I sent Chico a message on Twitter today, and I just said, hey, man, need your email so that I could send him some of this stuff and we could start getting, conversation going. Right. Dude, I don't know what happened. Like, I am still truly dumbfounded by, like, I don't... I'm just dumbfounded. Like, I don't even know what happened. It's like I asked like a mental patient, like, what's 1 + 1? And they started screaming about squirrels. I don't know what the hell happened.
Right.
And it went from, I'm not working with you, you're a scammer, and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And then it just snowballed. Like, years ago, I crowdfunded a game on Kickstarter, right? And I spent like 3 years trying to develop this game, and it ended up tapping into like 20 grand of my own money. And because it was like an MMO, and like my lead developer let's just say it went bad, right? But it
Right.
really hurt me, and 3 years of pure hell with trolls all over the internet hating my guts because I hadn't launched this game and all this other stuff.
Right.
So apparently, and because of that, some of those people just chased me all over the internet, just spewing whatever they could, like trying to burn me to a cross, right? So I did this video where I explained everything. I'm like, this is exactly what happened, the whole nine. Well, Chico decided to use that as branding me a scammer. And so because of that, he can't work with me because I'm a scammer, right? And so
because at the end of the day, I don't think the guy actually wants to fight
No.
or not. Okay, so let's start from the beginning, just because there's maybe some people who don't know the story behind.
I'm going to put a dip in for this.
Yeah. So I was doing an AMA, and then people would keep spamming me. What about this Chico crypto guy? And I looked at some of his videos, and he's like the Geraldo Rivera of the.
That's what I said.
Right. It's true though, right? You like mix a little bit of stuff.
Take 5% truth and make it what you want.
Spin it whatever way you want to do. It's just like creative slander. So he's got some hard on for Cardano, and he's just absolutely convinced, or he wants his people to believe that we're a scam project and everything's shady as hell, and like only 4 people are working on it, and there's already been an exit scam or something like that. There's like overwhelming evidence that everything he's saying is bullshit, and so most people just ignore him. But I said, wow, we need to broaden the base a little bit for Cardano, and it'd be really fun to say, instead of just talking about science and technology and engineering, let's try to bring a new demographic, a new crew in. Because everybody's like, Charles, you should go on the Joe Rogan show. And I said, well, wouldn't it be so cool if there was an MMA component or something like that? Let's get something that normal people care about. Because my goal is getting to 1 billion users. So, a charity fight would be a fun thing to do. And it's nice to have a villain. It's nice to have like the comment section of the internet's child, like fighting you, because everybody wants to see that guy get his ass kicked. And it also gave me a great excuse to get in good shape, and be a kind of a fun thing to do, almost like a McGregor Mayweather thing. It's not. It's publicity and kicks. At the end of the day, we can raise a lot of great money for charity, and we learn a lot, and it's a great opportunity to innovate. For example, I saw one of our guys in our community said we should put sensors in the gloves, and every time a punch was thrown, it actually recorded on the blockchain. Like little things like that we could do that'd be really cool, that maybe get the MMA really interested in.
Unfortunately, no commission would allow that. But yeah, it sounds like a great idea.
Right, exactly, right. Well, but maybe the UFC get involved or something. But basically, you use these things as a bellwether to write dApps, use these things as a bellwether to bring the community together, get people fired up. If you think about virality, you say it's got to be easy to understand. It has to be polarizing, and easy for a person to form an opinion one way or the other. If you have those characteristics, you're loaded for virality. So I figured something like this would be a lot of fun. Well, at the end of the day, Chico's nobody, man. He's just some dude who's got a YouTube channel, and he spews a lot of shit. And this is a phenomenal opportunity for him to actually get some positive exposure, build up a brand, and show he's more than just some internet troll.
I honestly gave this guy the benefit of the doubt. I thought this is all shtick, right? I thought his whole thing that he does, I thought it's just kind of, some people have a niche, right? They try to figure out, how am I going to get popular on YouTube? Some people go, just hard truth, total facts. They try, like it is what it is. Some people just make up all kinds of shit but then they get sued. They end up getting privately sued and shut down.
Right.
And then you've got guys that are kind of in the middle, where they mix some good stuff with a lot of bad,
right,
and it makes it dramatic and interesting. And then they cultivate these groups of people who like love that stuff. You know what I mean? They love the drama. And it's like, in talking to him, I thought, well, in private, like, we'll have a normal human conveation, Right,
exactly. There's a process here, right?
Right.
It's like look at McGregor versus Mayweather, and McGregor's got the fucking hard on, and it's all crazy, and he's got the pinstripe suit with the fuck yous on it. And private, it's like totally normal business meeting.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I was expecting. And I wouldn't have outed him if you'd have just been a normal, like, dude, having a conversation. I wouldn't have been like, oh, he's totally different. I wouldn't have tried to use that against him. But I don't, it's like, it's so, my head is still spinning, Charles.
It's crazy.
Like,
we were asking for a basic thing, like, okay, we're not going to do negotiations over Twitter. We're going to do it under NDA in a private channel. Your people talk to my people. The other thing, if we did this, you mentioned this last night, it's totally true. There'd be an upfront cost to get everything primed. And we need some assurances that he wouldn't just back out the minute he shows we are serious.
Well, his thing, I think for him, honestly, I truly believe that it's an ego thing. He looks at himself as this huge YouTuber who has, honestly, let's face it, like, he's built his popularity from, like, ousting people, even though, like, God, so much of his video, I watched his videos on Back, I watch his videos on a bunch of different, so much of that stuff is crap, but people chew it up, man. They just think, oh, wow, here, he's got pictures on the internet, he's got this and that, he's really doing his research, and it's like, his videos are so well produced that it kind of adds credibility, so he can say whatever and people are buying it just because it looks good, right? And so it's kind of like, it's one of those things where I think that he believes he's such a big YouTuber. He doesn't see me as a former MMA fight promoter. He sees me as a YouTuber that is beneath him because I'm not getting 30,000 views a video, running my mouth talking trash about the world to try and, I'm not doing any of that. And I'm so busy. I'm not doing it. The algorithm doesn't like me right now. So I don't think he wants to give me the respect because he's like, oh, your last video only did 2,000 views. My last video did 25,000. Who are you to tell me what to do? And that's basically what he was telling me. So I'm just kind of like, wow, man. Like, I promoted fights with UFC fighters. I've worked with, like, everybody out there, you know what I mean? And had one of the best reputations in pro-am MMA for 6 years. Who the fuck are you to tell me? Because you get more views, I could get views on YouTube. I could do a whole bunch of bullshit videos and whatever. I mean, it's like you already emailed the Ohio commissioner.
Right. I mean, it's like you have these great connections, and it just blows my mind. It's like there's a process to this. This is a business, and you have to follow the process. And the first step is you begin negotiations under NDA. It has to be safe, clean, and fair. It has to be regulated, and the government has to be involved in it. And there's commissioners involved and so forth. You have to pick a venue, all these things. We pitched Ohio. It looked like that's not even capable to do that.
And I had a feeling it wouldn't be in Ohio, but I saw the video of him talking about his weight. Like, I'm 140 pounds and I'm going to get up to 180 real quick. And then you're at like 210 or whatever. And I told you, I'm like, there has to be a catch weight. Like, you guys are not going to be able to fight each other with you 200 and him 160. Like, unless it was an unsanctioned exhibition, that's not possible. And so and these are conversations that I wanted to try and have with him, but there's no conversation with him. It's just, hey, one sentence, and then it just spews garbage. Like, I did my research. I found some guy pretending to be you on another forum who said this. Like, he's literally crediting me for shit that I didn't even do or say.
I know. But he's exposed himself for who he really is. I mean, like, he asked publicly on Twitter for some of my ADA. So let me get straight. It's a scam project.
He wants a scam coin.
It was my scam. It's a scam project. It doesn't work. There's no value, where it's all an exit scam. But he wants some of it because reasons. The guy, we gave the guy a chance to actually be bigger than who he is and to grow up and just become a man. And instead, he just wants to stay in the slime. And he's, this is how these things always work. People are their own worst enemies. I figured this would be a great opportunity for me to really take training seriously, get in good shape, do something good for the kids at St. Jude's, and, really bring a whole different demographic into the Cardano ecosystem that we didn't have before, and potentially maybe even score a big client. Could you imagine being the first blockchain to have a UFC as the partner?
Well, I know that Litecoin sponsored a UFC event.
But you can't run dApps on Litecoin.
Right.
So imagine if we could do the prediction market, like imagine fantasy football for UFC running on Cardano.
Right.
How much value would that bring into our ecosystem? How much value does fantasy football have?
I mean, I could start those conversations. Dana White tried to shut down my very first MMA event. And because he misunderstood a press release. And then a lot of these guys, like I've to this day, I've never spoken directly to Dana White. I've had to go through different people and things, but you know, I would love to see. And here's the thing about the UFC: they are always open to new big marketing things that are going to take them into new arenas and make things easier for them on a global level. And like, so I would love to see, you know, some sort of even a UFC fantasy betting app, you know, on the Cardano blockchain.
Or non-fungible tokens where people can own the players, like baseball cards.
I said this 2 years ago.
Right. And I was like, my God, the UFC is such a money machine, and they're such a marketing machine, and they have such a huge global audience. And if you do that, then the boxing is going to want to get on it. Everybody else ends to be so easy to franchise it out.
Here's the thing about that, to take that to the next level. What I had originally pitched, like literally 2 years ago, I'm sure I have a video on it somewhere. I had talked about UFC fighters. I mean, I think the UFC is starting to pay them a little better, but since this whole Reebok deal, a lot, like when I managed some guys in the UFC, and I remember the one fight for like I managed a guy named Roger Bowling, and I got him like 16 grand in sponsorship money for his last fight heading into the UFC, and then they changed their whole model. No, that was a Strikeforce fight, and then the UFC bought Strikeforce. He became a UFC fighter, and they changed their whole model to Reebok. Well, that completely lowered how much we were able to get for sponsorship. And so one of the big things that these fighters deal with is retirement. What are they doing for retirement? Because a lot of these guys, if they fight once to maybe 4 times in a year, if they're not superstars, they're just not making that much money, and they don't have any retirement. And I thought, if there was a way to put their careers on a blockchain to where, you know, there's so many coins associated with a fighter, you buy the rights to the fighter as he progresses through social media and this and that, everything is assigned a value, and you're able to generate, and they're able to generate, you know, that cryptocurrency as their careers excel, that's locked up for a period of time that they can use towards their retirement. So it's almost like they have a social career as well as their fighting career, and they both support each other. Am I making sense?
It makes total sense.
Okay, yeah.
It makes total sense. Own yourself, own your career, allow people to invest in you and invest in your career. You can easily use it for crowdfunding, for specialized training. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of innovations we could bring. And, you know, my whole point was that this would be a singular event for people to start brainstorming all these types of dApps, all these types of ideas. And we would make it a really collective thing. And it would become a way to bring a whole new dimension into Cardano that didn't exist before. And there's stakes. There's an incentive. People don't want to lose. People want to win. But, you know, he didn't get that. I think he's just treating it like a street fight. I mean, some of the tweets were so distasteful, like, I'm going to break his arm. Like, who the fuck says that?
Nobody.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, you know, that's not taking it seriously.
I think
you know,
what bothers me is that there are a lot of people out there that really believe this dude. You know, like I some of the comments were, you know, it's like he was trying to get people to rally around him, like I'm some scammer. And I'm just like, you know, and the one person was like, you know, I invested in a lot of projects Crow talked about and that took a shit. And I'm like, I'm really sorry that happened, but it really isn't just the projects I talked about. It's the entire market. Like, you know, like none of us were unfazed by this bear market. And so it's just the whole thing is such a self-feeding. I'm still, honestly, I really thought that he recognized this for what it was. It's like a really good opportunity. And he's like, oh, you're just trying to profit. Have I ever said, what are you going to pay me?
Yeah, you didn't ask for anything. So it's like, so let me get this straight. You profit by making no money and not asking for any compensation. I'll publish the logs, for God's sake. So
I thought about doing that. And I think anybody with any sense could read all of it. But it's like, look, I'm not even trying to out him. I don't need to out him. I found stuff on him. I'm not trying to out this guy. He just needs to just go back to what he was doing and just leave people alone and just stop attacking everybody. To me, it was like, so I'm going to tell you this quick story because this whole thing is something similar to what I experienced as a kid. My uncle was visiting from out of town. Okay. He was in the Navy. He was home visiting. The long and short of it is our upstairs neighbor, who was really abusive, used to abuse me, created a bunch of problems, used to smack me around, stuff like that. didn't realize my uncle was here visiting. Comes to our front door, starts yelling at my mother because the trash can was left out in the walkway or whatever. And starts cussing at my mom, okay? My uncle goes out. You don't talk to my sister that way. Who the hell do you think you are? He picks a fight with my uncle. My uncle is 6'10", Navy guy. Like, you don't really fuck with my uncle, Right. So my uncle starts beating the piss out of this guy in the middle of the street. This guy takes off running, goes up into his apartment. My uncle goes to follow him. As he's going up, he comes back to the landing because I'm standing at the landing. He throws a microwave oven down at my uncle at the bottom of the stairs. Then he started throwing appliances and shit, right? and so my uncle's catching it. He's like, Jason, get out of the way. And he's chucking this guy's appliances into the yard. And that's, to me, kind of what I'm seeing with Chico. He's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here, and I'm going to start chucking appliances at you to just try and keep you away.
Right. But the important thing is he only's got one microwave, right? After you've thrown the microwave, you've blown your load. And he did. He's outed himself. He's exposed himself for who he is. I really pity the guy. I feel bad for him because this is his only shtick. It only works for so long. And then once people know, you're done. And, we move on. So the fight is off. We're not gonna give him another opportunity.
I know I'm done. I'm
still gonna train because it might be a great opportunity if we can find somebody prominent in the space, like a Roger Ver or something like that. But
I think it'd be a lot of fun to see you and Roger Ver. I know Roger Ver is a killer, though. That's the thing. Like,
he kicked my ass. He totally kicked my ass.
Roger Ver probably tapped me. Like, and I'm 42 and I'm big and I could knock out a bull. But man, if Roger Ver were to get me on the ground, I have a feeling he was a purple belt in the video that I saw of him a couple years ago. So he's probably at least a brown belt. And like I told you, I've rolled with black belts, man. And you roll with a good black belt, there is nothing you could do. I don't care if you're 500 pounds. They're like a snake. And they're slow and methodical. And everything you do, they can feel and they can counter it. Right. It's magic. It's art. And I've never rolled with Ver, but I have to assume he's probably pretty good if he was a purple belt a couple years ago.
So anyway, I'll still train a bit, and I'll get the conditioning where it needs to go, and we'll see if we can do something. But I'm really interested in bringing a sports element into Cardano, and I think that would just bring so many users and so much value. And if the community has some good ideas, or if they want to do something, we're always available. I mean, this is a collective brainstorming exercise of how do we get the rest of the world in. We own science. We've written 53 papers, more on the way. And next year, we'll probably write another 50. So that's not going to stop. And we're still doing formal methods. That's not going to stop. The intellectual core of the project is there. But at the end of the day, people don't see that. That's just a quality label saying, yes, it works. And yes, it's correct. But that doesn't guarantee adoption. What 2020 is about is adoption. 2020 is about bringing users into the platform, making it useful for people. So we have to look at every industry. We have to look at the health vertical. We have to look at the supply chain vertical, the fintech vertical, and yes, the social sides of things, social networking, communication, sports, prediction, all these things. That's the only way we're going to get to 1 billion users and actually bring real value to Cardano. So I'll still train, and we'll see what we can pull out of this. And it would be a lot of fun to do a Roger match, especially because I have a lot of respect for Roger, and he's always been very kind to me, and I do like the Bitcoin Cash people. They've always been kind to us as well, a lot kinder than the Bitcoin Core.
I feel bad because early on, all I knew about Roger were the videos I saw of him yelling at people.
Right.
And then I had my own kind of the way he marketed Bitcoin Cash I felt was a bit misleading. And I thought it was kind of taking advantage of newcomers. And I said that. And and then the more I hear about him from people that know him, like Crypto Beatles is really good friends with him. And he's like, dude, you don't understand, man. He's like the best dude. He's so nice. He's so, and I'm hearing all that. And then I watched that documentary about him and like the trouble he had with the fireworks, and how he basically had to move out of the country because he was just so afraid of the US government at this point, just locking him up for dumb shit, which I have the same fear. I feel like anybody that's, it's like you just never know. You could cross the street and anything could happen, I feel, in this country. The prison rate is so high. So I started sympathizing and understanding him. And I'm like, and I even told Beatles, I'm like, dude, I want to have him on my channel. I just want to talk to him. Even if it's not on my channel, I just love the opportunity to actually talk to him. But I'm like nobody to him, you know. So, but I have admittedly said like I was a lot, and I never just sat around trash talking him, but I've just made comments, kind of like the ones I just made.
Well, that was a really polarizing time, the whole Bitcoin Cash thing. It was very, very polarizing.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody had a position and it was tough. But, you know, Roger's been Roger consistently. I've known him for a long time and he's never changed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the guy that really carried Bitcoin's water. Back in the day, like 2010, he'd get his hair cut. He'd be like, hey, do you accept Bitcoin? And they're like, what's that? It's like, oh, he'd actually pay. In Bitcoin, you get him to take it. It's like every place you go, coffee shop, restaurant, whatever, you got to take Bitcoin. You got to take Bitcoin. And he was the original evangelist, and he fought very hard for the Bitcoin ecosystem. And you know, his interpretation of what Bitcoin means is very specific. And when he saw a deviation from that, he wasn't just like complaining about it. He just put a huge amount of his money and time where his mouth is. And he's frankly one of the most disciplined people in the space. When he's decided he's going to do something, he doesn't deviate. He just goes and does it every day.
And I respect that.
So yeah, so you know, you got to respect it. You know, we certainly disagree on certain things, but you know, reasonable people disagree. That's why I built my own cryptocurrency. That's why we built Ethereum. It's why we built Cardano. I mean, there's philosophy encapsulated. These aren't just coins that exist for the sake of being coins. They're very particular about how we view things need to be done. And the market will ultimately decide which ideas are there. But I would never put him in the category of he just created Bitcoin Cash to make money or something like that. He really does.
And that's what I thought. That was my impression at the time. Like, oh, he just created some Bitcoin clone and he's trying to fool people into thinking it. I just didn't know.
I did pick at him. I did pick at him about the association with Craig Wright, because in the beginning, Craig was in the Bitcoin Cash community. I said, what are you doing? You're covering yourself in tar and you're just setting it on fire.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's a bad deal, man. And it did. They split and created Bitcoin SV and so forth. And then Craig did exactly what he did to everybody else to Roger. But you know, all things considered, I think they've built a good ecosystem. Anyway, so no Chico. He can just go pound a sand and pound a lemon. We gave the kid a chance, and yeah, it's a real sad thing because it would have been great for his career and it would have been great for his publicity, and he could have really made something of himself and leveraged this to get to the next level. And then we could have really built
I don't think
great
he
event.
realizes what you and I have been discussing, and like we just couldn't get that far. Like this was going to be a much bigger deal than I originally thought.
We couldn't even send him an email. You know, just like even just basic communication, that's the first step. And then you do it all under NDA because you don't want these things leaking. And then you basically figure out what he needs to make it good for him, what we need to make it good for us. And there was clear ideas about how this could benefit the Cardano ecosystem. And he's as I said, he's like a perfect villain. You know, it's like the comment section of the internet had a child, and he's the slime that everybody wants to see get beaten up. And then also the other thing is he could polarize all the people that hate me in this space and get them in on it. And this would be the first time where my haters are actually contributing to the success of Cardano and also contributing to helping kids out at St. Jude's. So I figured it's just a win-win for everybody.
It makes sense, doesn't it?
Right. And just like in one day he blew up the negotiations. So, you know, that just shows you who he is. And the fact that he asked for Ada to fight, it really shows you who he is after he made all those videos about how we're horrible people and scammers. And
I just think he says whatever he thinks will help him in the moment. I don't think he really thinks, you know, he said something about me booking a guy to fight 2 days after trying to commit suicide. And I had to look it up because I couldn't remember. He was talking about Junie Browning. I had Junie Browning fight, and I talked to Junie Browning for a good hour because he was in the press about just spazzing out and going to the hospital and all this other stuff. Junie was like, dude, I did not try to commit suicide. He was drinking, and he took like his meds or something that counted. There was a reaction, I guess, to what he took, and the alcohol made him spaz out. He ended up going to the hospital. The media branded it a suicide attempt. He's like, it was not. I would never kill myself. He's like, I'm crazy, but not that crazy. I mean, we talked forever about it. And, you know, and he told me, like, he was very honest about it. Like, he told me what he did wrong. And, you know, and I'm like, all right, man. I was like, but you need to clean up your shit. You need to clean up your life. And he's like, man, I want this fight. I'm trying to change my image. And, you know, let me tell you this about Junie Browning, because I know people that watch this are going to probably have read that. I want to make sure that they understand. When Junie Browning came to fight for me, He made sure that I understood he was going to do something crazy for the sole purpose of getting a rise out of everybody. Okay?
Right.
Half of what Junie Browning would do was all an act.
Yeah, it's the same with McGregor or these other guys. It's flamboyant stuff for getting attention and PR.
Right, exactly what it was. And so,
Yeah.
and I was very well aware. I didn't know exactly what he was going to do, but I knew that he was going to do something. And he was like, I hope you don't get mad at me. You know, he's like, don't get mad at me. But I won't even say what he did, but it was very brazen, and it was very like, oh God, okay, well that was tasteless, right. Junie, but I get it now. You know, but it's like people don't understand, and that's honestly how I thought Chico might be. Like, okay, a lot of this is stick. You don't really hate the world. You don't really think everybody's a piece of shit. You're just doing videos, right?
Right.
No. Like even Junie Browning is 10 times more sane than Chico was. And so yeah, at this point I've thought about just like blocking him, let him say whatever, and just moving on.
I'm done with the whole thing. I give everybody one chance, and I say let's have something constructive here, and you get something out of it, I get something out of it, and it's just clear to me that he's not even at that level. So you know, there's no sense in even talking about that anymore. I still will train, you know, do some Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu. And
look, man, if you come to a point where you say, you know what, Jason, let's do something. And, you know, if Roger Ver comes out and he wants to get involved and we can, I mean, if I weren't promoting an event, I would fight. I would fight. I would, because I'm where you are, you know.
We could probably get Brock Lesnar on that one, because we did talk to him too. We have a connection to his guys.
I would fight Brock Lesnar knowing I would get my ass stomped, but I would just do it to say I did it. Right. I was trying to get a fight against Batista though, like no bullshit. And I had one of my guys like all over, like trying to work out something. And because he did fight MMA.
You're like 7 feet tall. What's Batista's height?
Oh, he's a pretty big boy, I think.
He's like 6'4" or what is it?
Yeah, but I mean, we're, you know, like I would have to cut weight. Like I'm 300 pounds. So to get to 260, that's a big weight loss thing for me. I would be skin and bones going in there. But that doesn't really change your power, or your technique, or any of that. So I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, I really did want to fight Batista. I would fight Lesnar if I had a good ample amount of time and the proper trainers. I would get my ass stomped though. Like if I didn't knock him out in the first 30 seconds, I would just be done. And I'm very well aware of that. And he's got no neck, so knocking him out is going to be a real struggle.
Right.
But every fighter has a puncher's chance.
One block of muscle, you know.
Dude, I've never seen anything like him, man. Like, he's one of the only guys. I fear no man. But I would fight Lesnar because I actually fear him, and it's one of those conquer your fears type things.
Right.
And just hope that he has enough human decency to not truly kill me. You know, that's kind of how I see it. He's a freak of fucking nature. And a guy like him with his accolades all through school, all the way up to now, it's like I could try to get him in a heel hook, you know, like that was my bread and butter for a while. I could, you know, like Frank Mir beat him with a heel hook or whatever. It's like I might have to do that too. There's a chance. But yeah, no, I'm totally full of shit.
You're a one-trick pony. You just go in and blow your load and hope it works.
That's pretty much it, man. After 30 seconds, I'm dangerous as hell for about a minute, and then I just got to take a nap. I need sleep.
Yeah, there you go.
But hey, man.
Anyway, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate all the help with the fight. We'll stay in touch about it and see if we can pull something off.
Yeah, I'm sure we could in the future. You just let me know. Yeah. And yeah, man.
Got to be the right person.
Thanks for your time, and yeah, I mean, we'll just keep chatting.
All right. Take care so much.
All right. Thanks,
Cheers.
Charles. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. See you guys soon.